I feel like this should just be just like a slow zoom in as I stare, wondering like how to answer this question.
Good luck.
How did I prepare? I don't know how to speak about this if you haven't seen the movie. That's what I'll say. Once you've seen the movie, let's talk, and I'm sorry. Thanks.
Good dodge. Solid
Thanks.
dodge.
Thank you.
Hi, friends. It's Katie from Without a Crystal Ball. Welcome back to my channel. Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds are counting on you to not critically think. Her PR, which is very powerful, Leslie Sloan, and Ryan Reynolds, who has millions, hundreds of millions of dollars allegedly, and has large movie studios backing him like Disney, where he has a first looks, and he has an upcoming film being distributed by none other than Sony. They have a CIA operative, Shapiro, pushing out a lot of the same kind of articles online. And I want to just be so clear when I say this. I am not a bot. I am not AI. My name is Katie. My middle name was Joy. My last name is Paulson. I have been working as a independent journalist for more than 8 years. My company, Without a Crystal Ball LLC, is registered in the state of Minnesota, and I am a female-owned small business. I'm a minority-owned small business because in the world of small business and business ownership, women do not hold the majority in how many businesses are owned. According to a study done by Wells Fargo in 2024 on the impact of women-owned businesses, women represent 39.1% of all businesses owned in the United States. They employ 12.2 million workers, and these businesses generate 2.7 trillion in revenue. Because women are not majority owners of businesses, most are still owned by men, we are considered minority business owners. And here's what happens when you are Blake Lively claiming to be an advocate for women is when your PR starts a strategy, an obvious one, to attack female creators that are small business owners to try to discredit their work and discount their jobs and make it seem like the information that is provided is not only false, but conspiratorial, is an attack on women. The majority of the creators that are covering this topic on Blake Lively are women. There are some guys, don't get me wrong, there are some guys. You've got Dave Neal, you've got Andy over at Popcorn Planet, you've got Ask Two Lawyers, you've got Zach Peter. The overwhelming majority of the people covering this are women. And why are women covering this? Why is a woman or why is women journalists, independent content creators, independent small business owners, why are they covering a topic like this when we as women are supposed to believe all women? Well, we're covering it because many of us are victims ourselves. Some of us are victims of domestic violence. Some of us are victims of SA. Some are victims of sexual harassment. Some of us have been marginalized and harmed by other people. And we are also individuals that may have also been victims of narcissistic abuse and smear campaigns. This story particularly drew interest to me because I personally have gone through litigation where I was a tiny little creator being sought after by people that had very large platforms. I felt like a mouse next to an elephant, and horrible false allegations were made against me. Terrible allegations that were not true. And my life was devastated for a very long period of time, particularly while a certain person was under federal indictment and making podcasts about me as a mother, accusing me of child abuse on a nationally syndicated podcast, while this person also had a reality television show under the NBC umbrella. So I know what it's like to have someone that's much larger than you attack. And I know what it's like to feel voiceless and have no one believe you. And I also know what it's like to be a victim of domestic violence. And I also know what it's like to be a victim of SA because I'm both a survivor of two, both. And that's how I got invested in this story. And with my work, I seek to uncover the truth and go the direction that the truth goes. And I uncover and review court records. And court records are not always the full truth. They're documents by an attorney with one side of an argument, and you need to be able to weigh the evidence and you need to critically think. And I will say the one benefit I have in my life is that I have a Bachelor's of Arts. It's a Bachelor's of Liberal Arts from the University of Minnesota. And that degree taught me the importance of critical thinking. It made me love research. It gave me a curiosity for the world, and it made me realize that I need to be able to analyze information. I need to be able to think critically about the information that I'm seeing and reading. I have to be able to communicate that effectively. And it gave me a full compass of I learned about humanities and social science and natural science and math and creative arts. And my focus and my degree was in Spanish studies. But what my degree was in didn't really matter because the whole Bachelor's of Arts was in liberal arts. And I learned to critically think. And that's where my interest and research drive comes from what I did for my 4 years at the University of Minnesota. I then spent 12 years working in higher education, where I again learned more about critical thinking and research. And I took graduate courses in business and business leadership, where I again learned the value of critical thinking and research. And I learned that you need to be literate. You can read, but you also need to understand. There's a difference between reading and understanding. You can read words, but you need to be literate. And what Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds are hoping is that all of us are illiterate in our understanding and our knowledge of court records. They also want us to be media illiterate. They want us to take at face value their position and their allegations, even if there's mounting evidence to the contrary. They want to weaponize the Me Too movement, feminism, and misogyny against those of us that don't see it the way that they do. They're using hot button topics to create division, and there's no side doing this more than the mainstream liberal media. And this is coming from someone that's a registered Democrat. That's me. They've now elicited an article from The Guardian, and the title of it is It's Misogyny Slop Ecosystem How Candace Owens and the American Right Declared War on Blake Lively. What I find interesting in all of the articles is that none of them discuss that he has a countersuit against her. It's always Blake Lively's lawsuit is the truth, and Baldoni's lawsuit doesn't get mentioned. In fact, in this article written by a man targeting women, and he tries to make you believe that we doing this work are a part of a smear campaign. It's obvious that he knows next to nothing about this case and hasn't bothered to read because one, he's in the UK, which means he may not have access to our court records. I don't know if he does. I'm not sure how it works, but he says the ins and out of the saga itself are almost too labyrinth to follow. So he wants you to believe, and that's very divisive language, that it's too hard for you to understand what's happening in this case. So you might as well just take his word for it. In a nutshell, Lively alleges that Baldoni sexually harassed her during the making of It Ends With Us. In the story, Lively falls in love with an abusive man played by Baldoni. He alleges that Lively and her husband Ryan Reynolds tried to take control of the film, which Baldoni also directed and co-produced. In a flurry of suits and countersuits, each side has alleged misconduct and accused the other of orchestrating a smear campaign against them. So, in order for him to prove his point that all of this is being orchestrated by the right, they make and pull names like Joe Rogan, Candace Owens, and then they have to go into Candace Owens' background and list off a bunch of her beliefs that they don't like. They also bring up Megyn Kelly. And this is a quote that they've used from Megyn Kelly. You've been gaslit to high heaven every time you've picked up a newspaper in the United States, every time you've turned on CNN. You have been the victim of overbearing and controlling leftists who think you are the final arbiters of what's best for you and your life. And I'm not a fan of Megyn Kelly, but I do agree that there's become this problem in the liberal media where I feel a lot of the time that these magazines are telling me what I need to think. They're telling me how I should feel. They are sitting in their elite towers with very close connections to very wealthy Hollywood people talking down to me about what I should think and feel. And I'd rather just make my own decisions and I'd rather just decide for myself what something is or is not. And the thing about this case that I think is different than other cases is I've never been part of or reported on a case ever that has had this much evidence. I've never reported on a case that has 300 pages or 500 pages or whatever the documents are that are in these briefs for their complaints, and the myriad of output that we're getting from all of the motions that are being filed, the motions to dismiss, the competing lawsuits that have different screenshots. But in this case, we're getting one side where everything is very cherry picked on Blake's side, where she's using a line out of a text message and saying that this is what you said and this is what you meant. And then we're seeing the whole context in the same text message from Justin Baldoni's side and Wayfair. And we live in a society of cancel culture. And I'll tell you one thing, there are people out there that have tried to cancel me based on fake screenshots. There have been people that have tried to cancel me based on one sentence I said in an entire 30-minute dialogue. And if you can splice together and piece together what someone says to fit a narrative to try to cancel them, that's what I view Blake doing to Justin, not Justin doing to Blake. But this is what they say about me and people like me. It's not just right-wing figures weighing in against Lively. Everyone seems to be at it. Go on X or YouTube or TikTok, and you'll be served up an endless stream of videos discussing and analyzing the case in forensic detail, overwhelmingly from an anti Lively point of view. Content creators have been in a feeding frenzy over the case. There are celebrity gossip tea channels, body language experts, and AI powered pseudo journalism. Did you hear that? Pseudo journalism. All supported by an army of mommy sleuths, laptop detectives whose examination of every nuance of this case often verges on conspiracy theory. Is Lively out for revenge because she was secretly in love with Baldoni? Is Lively's new comms manager, Nick Shapiro, a former CIA agent, using black box tricks to stifle negative stories? Did she burp and fart all the time on the set of Gossip Girl? Content scrutinizing Baldoni's behavior or background is similar detail is much harder to find. Content creators, celebrity media, and prominent public figures feeding off each other's output, recycling and regurgitating the same low quality, primarily anti woman information, all boosted by engagement targeted social media algorithms. It's a perfect storm of misogyny, according to them. Except a lot of us that are talking about this are not doing what he said. You won't find a lot of the gossip here. You'll find a lot of my content being derived from the court records and from the facts that I can find for this case. I will sometimes share with you if someone tells me something about their experience, but that's from a source, and I have a right to share that. But I think it's very weird for them to say in this same article that Nick Shapiro is somehow behind this when they also then want to criticize Melissa Nathan on Justin's side for somehow being a part of it too, right? Nick Shapiro, who is the CIA agent, and that's truth. That's truth. He actually put out misinformation about Hunter Biden's laptop, which was endorsed by the Biden administration, and they knowingly knew it was false and said it was Russian propaganda. That's what Nick Shapiro did while he was with the CIA. He's not without controversy. He's known to spin stories and get ahead of stories. And he has a lot of background and intelligence skills to do that. I'd venture to say he's pretty high powered in what he can accomplish, as evidenced by the number of articles that have been written by all of these outlets with the same underlying theme: do not trust content creators. Do not trust people that read the court records. Do not trust anyone that is a pseudo journalist. A pseudo journalist is someone who imitates but is not, in fact, a journalist. What's the difference between a journalist and a reporter? Journalists create content and write pieces using their opinion, while reporters rely on collected facts. Both professions allow the same ethical practices and standards. So in this case, he would be a journalist, no different than me. Now, what's an investigative journalist? Investigative reporting, however, does not just report on information that's given out by others, whether it's the government, political parties, companies, or advocacy groups. They seek more than what is given to them. What I would say is that the individuals that are on these media outlets that are making these kinds of outlandish claims, what they're doing is reporting. They're not digging below the surface. In fact, Columbia University, they did an article about what investigative reporting is. And this is how they would say what a reporter would do that is not actually investigative journalism. If a reporter attends a press conference and then they write about it, they cannot be said to be doing investigative reporting. If they interview those wounded by a police operation and then report what they have been told, that is not investigative journalism either. The reality is that daily news coverage is usually not probing or investigative. It reports mainly on what officials or institutions say, as well as other people's responses to what has been previously said. What most of us consider news are reports on official statements or reactions to official statements. Daily news reporting is seldom investigative, it is mostly reactive. And I would call that article a reactive one. Investigative reporting is actually the focus on public good. It is about holding powerful people accountable. Investigative reporters have always seen themselves as guardians of the public interest by exposing wrongdoing and failure. They aim to hold the powerful accountable for the actions. In the United States in the early 1900s, crusading journalists were called muckrakers because they dug out the muck of the dirt of society. The muckrakers exposed such issues as the abuses of corporations, unsafe working conditions in the state of mental institutions, and poverty in the slums of the growing cities in the US. It's about following the trail of wrongdoing. It's about digging through information. It's about getting documents or following the paper trail. The documents are at the heart of the investigative reporting. They provide proof or clues on the wrongdoing that journalists wish to expose. Investigators, reporters, analyze the documents they obtain and use the information they find there to piece their stories together. It's difficult, although not impossible, to do investigative work without some sort of paper trail. And then they interview sources to follow the paper trail. They use computers to do an electronic trail. They do field work. These are all of the things that I have done in my work. And that doesn't make me a pseudo journalist. According to Columbia University, that makes me an investigative journalist. The challenge with investigative journalism today is that we live in a world where everything is very fast paced. People don't have long attention spans, and if you really want to get to the heart and the meat of a story, to figure out what's happening and to expose it, you need to spend a lot of time doing it. You can't do it half ass. And a lot of reporters that work for these outlets have deadlines. And when you're an independent creator like I am, you can focus your time and attention on whatever it is that you want, meaning that I can put all my resources if I want to into this story to get to the truth. And that's what I've done is I've followed documents, and the documents thus far are not in the favor of Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds. It was my channel and my work that uncovered the Van Zandt Inc. lawsuit, a company that is owned by Blake Reynolds and attributed to Ryan Reynolds, the same company that is past due in the state of New York, hasn't updated any of their records since 2019, and FTB suspended in the state of California. It's a company that is a shell. It's a shell company. It doesn't do anything. It serves no purpose. No one knows it exists. And that was used to subpoena and obtain illegally records connected to Baldoni and Jennifer Abel. But yet the mainstream media continues to ignore that lawsuit. In fact, most outlets are not even acknowledging it exists. It was a fly by night, you missed it kind of day, kind of story. No one is questioning why did Blake Lively use Van Zandt Inc. to illegally obtain documents from someone else. What does it say about America that if you're a millionaire like Ryan Reynolds, and I'm talking hundreds of millions of dollars, that you can abuse the court system in a way where you venue shop from one area to another, you go to forum to forum to forum, kind of like moms that have Munchausen's go to doctor to doctor to doctor to get the what they want. They're doing this with a lawyer and with a forum, and they're doing this to intimidate. And then they're gaslighting everyone to believe that the response of the victim saying, "I'm actually the one being smeared," is a Darvo tactic. Blake and Ryan are actually just classic narcissistic abusers in how they're doing their litigation. And that's my opinion based on everything that I've found. And the true evidence of a smear campaign is when you start seeing other journalists attacking other journalists to try to discredit the work of those journalists. Instead of The Guardian, The Atlantic, Stephanie Neal with Glamour, uh, Cosmopolitan, whoever's writing about it right now, instead of these outlets talking about the case, they're talking about us. That's a common deflective tool. It's also a tool being used commonly in the legacy media. So think of it this way, the legacy media is dying. Print and digital forms of media through the news and news outlets, revenue is sinking. More people consume their news through social media and get it online versus going to NBC or watching the nightly news or reading Glamour magazine or going to Cosmopolitan or whoever you're getting your news from. More people are getting it from social media. In order for a Hollywood powerful schemer and con artist and fraud like Ryan Reynolds to be successful, he needs a variety of people being willing to cover up for him. And he needs to be able to use powerful threats and lawyers to make sure that you in the media don't report negatively on him, or you're not going to get access to him, or he's going to sue you into oblivion. Ryan Reynolds reminds me of another guy I know. His name's Todd Chrisley. He loved to sue everyone while he was under federal indictment. No one in the media wanted to talk about how crummy Todd Chrisley was, all of the money that he stole. He had NBC behind him. He had all these people like pretending like he had done nothing wrong. No one reported on his criminal case until he actually went to federal trial and was convicted. And even still, outlets like People Magazine to this day report on how ill-treated Todd Chrisley is in prison. He stole millions of dollars, millions. He made banks fail and defrauded our government. And outlets to this day are pandering to him. That's how I lost all faith in mainstream media when I was the target of Todd Chrisley and they made him feel and seem like the victim. Banks failed because of him in Georgia. Over $30 million was stolen. That's who People Magazine and all of these outlets praise. And Ryan Reynolds is no different. We don't know if he's committed crimes, but I would venture to say the way that he's acting, he has some things to hide. And so legacy media, who has dying breed of everything, and they hate us content creators for doing their jobs better than them. And Ryan Reynolds, who needs the mainstream media and them to cover up his crimes, and he can do it by threatening them. They need each other. So they have a dual motive to discredit us, discredit the little guys so they can remain powerful. So much like Blake and Ryan are trying to stomp on Wayfair, they're also trying to stomp on content creators, and they're using the mainstream media outlets and their connections through the mainstream media with their PR agent Leslie Sloan to not only smear Justin Baldoni, but to smear content creators that read court records. And journalists that are lazy and don't have time to read 300 pages of court records are taking their side because they're ill-informed. They're getting told by someone that's powerful that they'll get access to them and they'll get ass pats and high fives from Deadpool. That's the world we live in. And meanwhile, while they're also not trying to destroy my life and the lives of other content creators doing this job and investigative journalists, they've also managed to cause further damage to who? Justin Baldoni. Because Wayfair Foundation, a nonprofit that Steve Sarwist has poured over $100 million of his own money into to donate to serve impoverished communities, to fight racism, to advocate for the LGBTQ, using his own money to do good in his community, has closed their doors and shuttered under the stress of this lawsuit. A man that has dedicated $100 million of his own money. Ryan Reynolds and Blake Lively's $200,000 donation to the NCAAP Legal Defense Fund pales in comparison to the $100 million that he's donated, and he's already pledged $35 million more. So $135 million donated. Steve Sarowitz wants to donate every last dollar he makes until he's broke before he dies. Wayfair Foundation has closed. In a statement on their website, it says, over the past 4 years, Wayfair Foundation has supported dozens of grantee partners in fulfilling their missions. I'm so incredibly proud of the impact this organization has made and deeply grateful for our staff, board, donors, and partners. Upon unanimous decision of the board of directors on Friday, May 2nd, we began the process of sunsetting the foundation. We will honor all of our current grant commitments as we carefully wind down operations over the next several weeks. Although the Wayfair Foundation is closing, my personal commitment to giving remains strong, and I'm dedicated to making an impact on society through the ongoing mission and work. We understand that this news may come as a surprise, and we will be actively working over the next several weeks to ensure all matters are concluded with care and attention. With gratitude, Steve Sarowitz, founder of Wayfair Foundation. This was a Baha'i inspired organization. It funds and supports spiritually rooted and justice oriented nonprofits. We center our work on the power of universal participation to create a more hopeful, joyful, and just world. An organization like Wayfair has donated to gender equality organizations like Black Maternal Health Fund, Lied Foundation, Maya, Middle Eastern Immigrant and Refugee Alliance, the 100 Horses Women's Society, Women's Voices Now, Caminar Latinos United for Peace and Equity. They have given money for racial injustice to so many organizations, dozens. According to their statistics on their website, 39% of their grantee partners received multi-year funding. From 2022 to 2023, they doubled their grant giving from $9.5 million to $19 million. In 2023, 88% of the grantee partners served communities that were 50% or more of BIPOC. 64% of their grant-making dollars supported organizations with an executive leader who identifies as BIPOC. 80% of the grantee partners served communities that are majority low income. They were giving a lot of money to a lot of organizations to help a lot of people. And because of the stress of this case, they have shut down. Now, the organization was faith-based and inspired by their Baha'i faith. TMZ is claiming that the foundation folded under financial, emotional, and legal strain. They say sources with knowledge make it clear to TMZ that the shutdown is tied to the ongoing lawsuits and the toll that it's taken financially and emotionally on Baldoni and co-founder Steve Sarowitz. The Wayfair Studios itself is still chugging along. They tell us that the closure is a gut punch, especially given the foundation's powerful missions and impact, funding causes from criminal justice reform to gender equality, LGBTQ rights, and uplifting diverse communities. He's already poured over $100 million, Steve, of his own money into the foundation's partners. And despite the shutdown, he's still committed to delivering nearly $35 million more this year, with some grants stretching into 2026. Blake's side has relied on the fact that no one asks questions and is manipulating and weaponizing the left media, I guess the left media, that you believe all women. But what they don't see is that this is not about believe all women. It's Ryan Reynolds using his wife as a shield, allowing his wife to use minority protections and civil rights laws to stand behind and use as a shield. So he's basically taking his wife, inserting false allegations of sexual harassment and sexual assault because he can't do that as a man against Baldoni, and then using that as a shield to make wild claims, knowing it will damage his foe, his nemesis, who he hates, Justin Baldoni, a scorned, jealous husband. And The Guardian thinks that it's asinine for anyone to believe that Ryan would be a jealous husband, even though that's his literal MO. And so while Nick Shapiro continues his work to disseminate bad and false information about people like me. And Blake Lively's propaganda and smear campaign against Justin Baldoni leads to Wayfair having to shut their doors, the foundation, putting men that have done and never had allegations against them of misconduct ever. You're talking about a man that's 40, and I think Steve Sarowitz is like in his 50s, late 50s, maybe early 60s. Two guys that, for all intents and purposes, up until this point in their lives, before ever crossing paths with Blake Lively, had a clean record. Before crossing paths with Ryan Reynolds, had a clean record. And Ryan Reynolds, as the psychopath that he is, in my opinion, took and weaponized the Me Too movement, weaponized civil rights laws, weaponized new laws in California for Me Too, forum shopped, berated, threatened, used Marvel and Disney to mock and degrade and diminish and to bully and intimidate Baldoni through Nice Pool. Blake then, through her husband, and Paul Feig, mock them in the new movie Another Simple Favor. They buy their way onto the Time 100 lists. I've heard from Ari Emanuel, according to the you guys talking online. And so they're continuing to buy all of this positive press and then destroy and diminish and degrade everyone else and destroy and ruin everyone. And what I keep wondering is, who are they helping? Who are they helping in all of this? Are they actually helping victims? Because they're not speaking for me. You know, I'm a woman. I'm a victim. I'm not mega wealthy. My husband and I, my husband doesn't work. I work full time. I had to leave my job in 2016 because my son was sick. In the span of a year, 2 years from the time I quit, my son underwent open heart surgery and 3 brain surgeries. In the span of the time between 2016, when I quit my job, until 2019, my son and I and my husband were in and out of hospitals. We didn't know how my husband was gonna keep working. I then, during that, decided to parlay my inquisitive nature and my urge for research and my desire and my strength in wanting to know everything and know the facts to parlay my dream of doing journalism. Even though I didn't have a degree in journalism, even though I didn't get hired as a journalist, I wanted to work in journalism. And so I created a blog. And then I started advocating. And I initially started advocating for children with special needs and parents of families that are raising children with disabilities. And then I ventured into the world of cults and started investigating cults. And then I started investigating crimes against children, crimes against women, crimes by powerful people trying to hurt others. And through that process, I was able to establish a business that has been able to support my family in a very difficult situation that we find ourselves in with a child that has significant disabilities and health issues. I'm a mother and an advocate. I've always been a fighter for truth. And I'm really getting tired of outlets like The Guardian saying misogyny slop has always existed. But I feel like around the time of the Depp and Heard trial, there was a real increase in social clout, almost in making fun of women who are alleging abuse. There is no one making fun of anyone alleging abuse. What we're doing is exposing the truth. I'm not a misogynist. I'm an independent journalist, investigative reporter, a small business owner, a mother of a child with disabilities, a mother of a child who will never live independently, and someone who is the sole breadwinner for the family. Attacking my business is attacking my family's livelihood. Lumping me and others into a conversation where we're resorting to being called misogynists when we are women, and the people that are calling us misogynists are men from Britain. This is the epitome of misogyny. When a liberal white man posing as a feminist named Steve Rose, sitting at a table, reducing women that are small business owners to slop misogyny, when we are victims and we fight every day to be seen the same way and validated and earn and have the same clout as men, we are reduced to misogynists and slop and clickbait. Coming from a man named Steve Rose, a man accusing me of misogyny and every other woman that's talking about this. I'm not after Blake Lively. Steve, We're not after Blake Lively. We all know who's behind it, and his name is Ryan Reynolds. And the sooner the mainstream media wakes up and realizes that you have been gaslit by a psychopathic, malignant narcissist named Ryan Reynolds, and you realize that you're actually parroting and regurgitating Ryan's misogyny of women. You're regurgitating his hatred of other men, his insecurity, and his desire to crush his enemies. He's using his wife as a shield, something he's joked about in interviews. He'd use his wife as a shield to protect himself from bullets. He will use her as a shield in this case and have her level false allegations of sexual assault so he can have power, so he can remove Wayfair from the industry. Because Wayfair has worked with people like Will Ferrell, who's one of his friends, who has worked with Scarlett Johansson, who's making her directorial debut with her new documentary that's coming out, Eleanor the Great. Working with people that have power in Hollywood, an up and coming an up and coming studio that wanted to make a difference, not just promote maximum effort, which is Ryan Reynolds. Who is Ryan Reynolds helping? Anyone but himself. Who? Who is Blake Lively helping but herself? We are not after Blake Lively. I believe Ryan Reynolds is the mastermind. I believe Ryan Reynolds is the person putting his wife in the line of fire. And at the end of the day, it will be Ryan Reynolds that takes the fall here because he's the one that has all the money, not Blake. And all of you, while you're talking about how we're attacking Blake Lively, all of you are ignoring what Ryan Reynolds is doing. And that's exactly what he wants. He wants you to call us misogynists so you don't look at him. Ryan has always said he's a master at deflection. And now he has deflected everything onto his wife. And he is now having you deflect everything onto us. And Wayfair has to shut its doors. The trail of destruction is never ending with Blake and Ryan. Is Blake a victim in this? No. But Blake is regurgitating and parroting what her controlling husband is doing. She sees what he does, she sees it's successful, and she does what he does. She says what he says. She acts like he acts. Blake was 22 when she met him. He was 35. Blake is being influenced by her husband. She might be actually better if she left him. She might have a semblance of a career if she left him. She might be able to just blame it all on him if she left him. But until she leaves him, she'll never take responsibility because he's the puppet master. So that's my diatribe, my lecture, what I had to say today, but I had to get that off my chest. So tell me what your thoughts are in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up. Please subscribe to my channel if you haven't subscribed and click the bell so you never miss a video. Thanks so much for watching. Bye, guys.